You are
notice.
distressed that the Ukrainians don't have enough American tanks. Every city in the United States has become much worse over the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Drive around. There's not one city that's gotten better in the United States. And it's visible. Our economy has degraded. The suicide rate has jumped. Public filth and disorder and crime have exponentially increased. And yet, your concern is that the Ukrainians, a country most people can't find on a map, who've received tens of billions of U.S. tax dollars, don't have enough tanks. I think it's a fair question to ask, like, where's the concern for the United States in that?
Well, it's not my concern. Tucker, I've heard that routine from you before, but that's not my concern.
Yeah, and that's the exact moment where the political career of Mike Pence officially ended. Good. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Zukradowski here of wearechange.org. And there is some wild and absolutely bewildering news to get into today, especially when it comes to, of course, the current regime and a lot of the corruption that they are involved in. There's a lot of horsing around, especially in our political sphere when it comes to this upcoming 2024 presidential election that just got a lot more interesting. Really surprising news coming from the DeSantis camp, the Trump camp, Vivek Ramaswamy. I was just there with a lot of those people at the TP USA event. I'm going to be talking about that, plus a lot more here on this independent media broadcast. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you could get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast is, of course, from Blaze TV, as they recently hosted a pro-life summit where they had an unemployed news anchor question the majority of the Republican presidential candidates for 2024, except for Donald Trump, where even NBC News is reporting that the biggest challenge for the presidential candidates wasn't the issues, but it was Tucker Carlson. We're going to be talking about that in just a little bit. But first, let's check in on the youth of this nation to see how they're doing to project the future of this country and its prosperity.
I love gummies. Big hug. That's a lot of meat. I need to go back to my therapist.
And yeah, we're in trouble. Things don't look good, but don't worry. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, has a solution for all of the children, as she is promising clean energy and electric vehicles that will help, quote, more children breathe clean air and drink clean water. All of this, as many powerful multinational corporations around the world are literally releasing toxic chemicals into the air, into the water, into our food supply. And whether it's glyphosate, atrazine, microplastics, forever chemicals, this administration has been a caveat towards what many people have called a larger biological warfare against this current generation that is clearly being impacted by all the chemicals all around us that this administration allows, excuses, and in many instances incentivizes with tax breaks and subsidies. So yeah, sorry, when lying Kamala says this, I just don't believe her.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
Yeah, honey, I don't think there's a correlation there, especially when it comes to electric vehicles that, according to many standards and experts, especially when it comes to the production of the raw minerals that are needed to create the batteries that need to be powered, that usually are powered through standard, already existing energy models. This, as a research company called Roadtest just released new data specifically showing how electric vehicle-specific tires, which need to handle vehicles that are a lot heavier than normal vehicles, quote, produce 20% more pollution than the gas equivalent cars and spread microplastics into the environment. As the typical electric car weighs more than 1,000 pounds more than gas cars. All of this, as it's important to note here that the major policy of this administration currently in the White House is to promote electric vehicles and to force them on everyone using force, coercion, taxation, and regulations that they absolutely have been abusing for the key personal individuals in their lives that, of course, are enriching them secretly behind the scenes, as, of course, the White House can't even answer simple, basic questions regarding the president's son that, of course, has been caught up in many controversies, as Hunter Biden has been threatening to sue people with his lawyer for talking about him and, of course, his personal matters that involve also the governments of Ukraine, China, Russia, the United States, the big guy, of course, and, of course, the tied financial bank statements and accounts with the current president of the United States. In related environmental news, we just had multiple reports of explosions going off at the Dow Chemical plant in Louisiana, with, of course, a very troubled company, Dow Chemicals, that has been previously caught releasing hazardous chemicals into the environment, poisoning people, and then covering it up in other places around the world. They're still allowed to be in business. A slap on the wrist. Don't worry. We'll just take a little bit of your profits, just like JP Morgan and Chase, that also is losing a little bit of profits for doing some really horrible things with a Mr. Epstein. All of this as the environment around us is left in utter decay and in shambles, with shanty towns, homeless villages, fentanyl, junkie warehouses from the proud democratic state of California that, of course, is trying to be a role model for the rest of the country somehow. This showing us just how utterly devastated and destroyed most parts of this country are after having an incredible amount of government intervene in their lives. And that's why today, one reason out of many reasons, I am wearing my Regulate Your Government, Not Your Neighbor shirt, which I think is the attitude that we should have moving forward, especially with just how utterly horrible and ineffective government is. And I have a lot more t-shirts that represent those ideas, which you could get on thebestpoliticalshirts.com, which also keeps this independent media organization up and running. This week, we released a new Florida Man t-shirt, which I am particularly proud of. It's an awesome design. I just ordered mine. I can't wait to get it in the mail. We also released the, quote, Be the Reason Someone Stops Believing in Government shirt, which is another important message plastered here on a billboard that you could wear on your shirt at the supermarket, at the bank, at your local street fair, farmer's market, you name it. We got it all available to you on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. This is another one, a little bit too spicy maybe to show you here. Lots of other shirts, too spicy. We just can't show you them here. We have 3 full pages of a lot of t-shirts representing a lot of different ideas, many too spicy to highlight here. You want to see those shirts, even though you're not interested in buying any of them, just scroll down a little bit. We have tank tops, we have women's shirts, we have hoodies, you name it. We got it all available on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And I'm proud to say that being at the recent TP USA event, I saw a lot of individuals wearing my shirts, which was incredible, which is freaking cool. I was like, hey, that's a cool shirt there. And people were like, oh yeah, you sold me that shirt. Good. And seeing that shirt and seeing individuals engage in really interesting conversations, seeing individuals challenge people's notions in the wild just by wearing a t-shirt is an awesome freaking experience, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. And I think literally I've reached more people probably with my shirts than my videos. And that's great. And that's a testament to how hard we have been working here at wearechange.org, trying to provide you the best ammunition out there in the real world to fight the larger information war that, of course, is raging on during a very turbulent and unpredictable political cycle that is becoming very dangerous for the world. This, as of course, there's a lot at stake here, including the future of a larger proxy war between the East and the West that will be decisively decided by the next president of the United States and either push us towards a very chaotic, destructive, dangerous situation or on the road towards peace. All of this as the situation in Ukraine is getting more and more dangerous, not just for the people in that country, not just for the people in Europe, but the people of the world. This as the United States is considering now sending cluster bombs to Ukraine, as there are already reports of those ammunitions being sent to that country. There's even rumors about F-16s, as some people are saying that this is going to help save lives somehow, when, of course, these are weapons of war that are meant to maim and kill, highlighting more rhetoric from the establishment that peace is war, as every step of the way here, this conflict has been egged on, pushed on by the powers that be, by many powerful institutions, by social media companies, by big tech representatives, by the corporate media, and of course, many politicians. And that distinction was felt more than ever, especially after the latest engagement between America's former #1 news anchor Tucker Carlson and establishment rhino Republican presidential candidate Mike Pence during a conference over the weekend where Mike Pence defended sending more munitions and lethal aid to Ukraine in order to deliberately prolong this conflict. This, as of course, the United States has always been sending enough weapons to prolong this conflict, but never to decisively win it. As I've always been making statements from the very beginning of this, that this war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be prolonged, and that's exactly what has been happening here. It could continue for the next few years, the next few decades even, as of course conflicts are very easy to start, but very difficult to stop. You look at the Middle East as a perfect example of that. This larger sectarian violence within Europe is extremely dangerous, and there's a clear difference between all the presidential candidates that are for it and the few and the personalities that are not, that clearly have a lot of populist support. Those individuals, of course, being Tucker Carlson and the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, that has spoken very aggressively against this war and has said that he will initiate peace, which is a favorable policy that makes him different and stand out from almost every other candidate running against him. His former vice president directly stands in polar opposite of that position and has faced significant backlash against his recent statements saying, quote, "That's not my concern," from a directed question from Tucker Carlson. Now, Mike Pence is arguing that he said, "That is not my concern," meant specifically about more tanks in Ukraine and not the American cities that are clearly being absolutely obliterated. Obliterated almost as Mike Pence's political career, as these are the latest comments from Tucker Carlson that were just given yesterday at the TPUSA event that I personally attended and was listening to live.
No. But if I could make some general observations, which I think are more edifying than just like savaging Mike Pence. I think, which I'm not going to do, because that would be wrong, and it would be wrong because it's too easy. And the easy things are not rewarding, are they? You don't feel good when you beat your 5-year-old in soccer or ping pong. Like what?
Ooh, very eye-opening statements that, of course, weren't holding anything back. As the main takeaway from this Republican presidential candidate summit that just happened from many people watching it was just how popular and powerful Tucker Carlson was, just by asking some key pointed questions that a lot of the Republican base had a lot of troubles answering. And this is why NBC News is saying the biggest challenge for Republicans was Tucker Carlson, who, of course, represents a larger populist idea and was willing even to get into nuanced issues like the alleged church prosecutions that are happening in Ukraine right now, with many clergy members being detained, arrested, and put on house arrest for practicing their religion. This is another issue that was contentious between Mike Pence and Tucker Carlson. This, as there's even PBS News articles talking about how religious leaders are being arrested in that country, while, of course, the corporate media is now trying to deny that fact somehow. Now, last night, Donald Trump did address the TPUSA crowd after Tucker Carlson's speech, an event where the organizer, Charlie Kirk, has also publicly announced that Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Tim Scott, and Ron DeSantis were invited to, but chose not to appear. All of this as there's more troubling news from the Ron DeSantis camp, showing that he, in fact, is raising millions of more dollars than his main opponent, Donald Trump, from direct contributions, but still fired several campaign staffers in order to cut cost of his presidential campaign. It's being estimated that he has already brought in $20.1 million, more than any other presidential campaign. Joe Biden is the second most donated to in Q2, following, of course, Donald Trump, who is in third place with $17.7 million raised. This, as NBC News is reporting that many Wall Street executives are making their first bets against Donald Trump and personally financing individuals like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and others to, of course, go against him. Issues and concerns that a lot of Ron DeSantis supporters will, of course, worry about, as, of course, a lot of the big money comes with a lot of big stipulations and strings. And I think it's fair to say that the Ron DeSantis camp has not been doing well, especially in the latest poll numbers, as now Ron DeSantis is planning to sit down with CNN's Jake Tapper for a one-on-one interview, which, I don't know, I think they think it's going to help his campaign, all of this, as another individual has been making a lot of significant headway, and that is, of course, Vivek Ramaswamy, who has been gaining in the polls and is very close to Ron DeSantis, especially when it comes to the latest numbers coming in, highlighting him, showing him as a viable threat in this certain political race. And there's a certain energy. Yesterday at the TPUSA event, he held an open forum where he talked to individuals one-on-one, and there was a lot of people wanting to talk to him. There is a bigger favorability growing with Vivek that is kind of notable, as of course he hasn't shied away from debate, he hasn't shied away from controversy, and he has been engaging people one-on-one in very interesting ways, and has even went as far as to publicly call for the gutting of major American agencies like the FBI, the IRS, and the CDC, which is personally music to my ears. He has also made a lot of very nuanced political points and perspectives that, of course, play up to a lot of the larger populist sentiment that truly is very discontent with the current regime, the current presidential candidates that, of course, usually do a song and dance for the establishment. This, as Donald Trump has even come out and said that his potential vice presidential pick for this election cycle could be his running opponent. Could it be someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, or could it be someone like RFK Jr. that is currently being attacked by the corporate media because he talked about gene-specific bioweapons? And now they're accusing him of xenophobia and anti-Semitism. Again, we're going to talk about that issue on LukeUnfiltered.com probably tomorrow. But who do you think is going to be Trump's VP? Let me know down in the comment section below. As, of course, this race heats up, we're still a very long way away from it, and anything and everything could happen. I don't think there's even going to be an election, from my own personal opinion. I talked about that also on LukeUnfiltered.com. You can see that video right now as a member. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys actively participating, commenting, sharing this video with your friends and family members, which is more imperative than ever. Getting the t-shirts, financing us from a grassroots level. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and that's why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.